A very good evening to one and all. When one perceives law and a career in law, we often think about the black draped lawyers, dark dingy courtrooms, and lots of books, and the requirement of being argumentative, and of course, objection, Your Honor, the famous movie dialogue. And once we dive into this profession, we come to understand that law is much beyond all this. Like two sides of a coin, there are days which leave you fully satisfied and content with yourself that you were able to facilitate the delivery of justice to a client and society. And there are other days where hours and hours of hard work, missing food and sleep, and almost ready to give up. But this coin, having these two sides, is surely made of gold, irrespective of the side you're on. And law is a profession that always keeps on giving the harder you work. The law's purpose and duty can be understood if we look at our constitution. After independence, the constitution was made by our forefathers to lead the nation forward. And the importance of law and law's purpose in our society can be understood from the beginning of this constitution, which is called the preamble. Four important purposes or attributes are given or provided in the constitution, which are: law is required to ensure social, economic, political justice, guarantee the liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, to treat all persons equally, to promote fraternity, assuring the dignity of each individual and the unity and integrity of our country. So these four important attributes of law is what a student of law should strive for. On this note, let me extend a very warm welcome to each one of you, especially all the young Loyalites who are watching this, who are interested in the legal profession. As you're aware, the Loyola Old Boys Association has been conducting Explore, which is a career guidance webinar series for our students. And this time it is about the subject of law and the legal profession. I am extremely happy to be part of this session as moderator, and we have Loyalites from this field who have done extremely well in their professional life and who want to share their experiences with you. By doing so, we plan to give you a sneak peek into how life as a lawyer or how life is in this profession, how it will look like, and the wide scope of it. Now, on that note, let me welcome our esteemed panelists for this program. First, Mr. Joseph Markos. Joseph sir graduated from Loyola in 1975, and he's a lawyer practicing mainly in the High Court of Kerala and the Supreme Court of India. He was designated as a senior advocate by the High Court for his wide experience, knowledge of the law, and his contributions to the law. He is a partner at one of the top law firms in Kerala, Joseph and Kurian at Ernakulam, and he practices mainly in corporate and commercial cases. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, Govind. Welcome to you also.
Next, Justice Basant Balaji. Basant sir is a member of the 1988 batch, and Basant sir started his legal profession as a lawyer in Trivandrum and later shifted his practice to Cochin. He has served as one of the lawyers for the state government as a senior government pleader, and in 2021, he was appointed as a judge of the High Court of Kerala by the President of India. And it is with great pride that I say he's probably the first Loyalite to be elevated to this esteemed post. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Govind, and welcome to all of who are attending this function.
Next, we have Nikhil Narendran. Nikhil is from the 1999 batch. Nikhil Charan is a legal expert in the field of corporate law, technology, media, and telecom laws, and he is presently a partner at the firm Trilegal in Bangalore. He was selected as 40 under 40 lawyers in Asia by the Asian Business Law Journal in 2020. A very warm welcome to you, Nikhil Chadha.
Thank you, Govind, and thanks a lot for LOBA for inviting me to the session.
We had initially planned a fourth panelist, Arun Mohan, but unfortunately, due to a personal inconvenience, he could not be there today. Now, I welcome the co-moderator also for the session, Mr. Suryakanth, who is presently studying in the 11th standard. He has shown keen interest in this field and hopes to join the profession soon. Welcome, Surya.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Now, without much ado, let us start the session. I want to open the discussion by asking a very important question to the panelists. how important is law in society and how important is a career in law? Basant sir, what is your take on this, especially in light of the court system in our country?
Okay. First of all, why choose a career in law? That is the question mooted now. It's a simple question, but the answer, I don't think it's so simple. I'll just start with a legal maxim for the young students. Ignorantia juris non excusat is a Latin maxim, which means ignorance of law is no excuse. It's a legal principle holding that a person who is unaware of law may not escape liability for violating the law merely because one was unaware of its contents. This makes it necessary for every person in India to make effort to know and understand the law of the land. So you know the importance of law now. There is an old saying, which little funny, which says, it goes like this. If you have three friends, make sure one of them is a lawyer, the other a doctor, and the last one a banker, because a normal person will require the services of these professionals at some point of time in their life. If you are in the other two, why can't you be the lawyer? That is a question given to you all, those who are attending from class 10, 11, and 12. Okay, I'll just proceed with this. A degree in law can give one the skill to be a successful lawyer, but also a successful producer, a manager, a journalist, a diplomat, or a police officer. A law graduate equips you for almost any profession that requires intellectual strength combined with practical approach to the world. Law is a professional course and help you develop certain skills, critical analysis, drafting of documents, research, arguments, and presentation and sharing of ideas. Why this I said this is, if you are faced with a case, say example, if it is a murder case, then you are going to examine a forensic surgeon, police officer, and so on. So you are going to examine a forensic surgeon who is well versed in medical science. So unless you know the anatomy of the body as well as the intricacies of the body, you can't question him and get things out of him. That is why I said each field will have to be thorough with this when you deal with the case. Now, regarding the opportunities of our law graduates, first of all, that comes to my mind, or to everybody's mind, is litigation. Litigation is one option that comes to everybody's mind. Litigation involves drafting of a story, producing it, and finally playing that in front of a judge. And guess what? You get paid for it. So it's just like a movie. You do everything by your own. So that is a tricky profession because in the early days, it may not be so much lucrative. So next option would be, if you want a stable life, then there are many opportunities in the corporate sector, which the other panelists would be highlighting about this. So teaching is another option available to a student. Teaching means teaching in the law colleges. There is a dearth in the field, as many of the litigation, or many of them opt for litigation as well as the corporate sector. Then the last comes my field, that is judiciary. I won't say that is the last option, but it should be the first option in your mind. But you end up this judiciary only in the later stage. That is why I said last option. First, you have to be a lawyer. Okay. Earlier, only a practicing lawyer could have applied for a post in the lower judiciary and required a minimum years of practice. But now it has changed. And after graduating from the law school at the age of 23 or 24, you can apply for selection as judicial officer in the lowest cadre. And once you're appointed, it's a very high, powerful, responsible, respectable position, which require you to adjudicate disputes. That is one of the options given. One interesting aspect is you can Indian Army, that is one option. Indian Army recruits soldiers to fight for our country, but these army personnel require the lawyers to fight for the legal battles. So they fight for our country, we fight for the lawyers. We fight for the soldiers. Now, finally, politics is there. Many of our prime ministers and presidents were lawyers. Our present honorable Prime Minister, Sri Ramnath Kovind, he was a lawyer practicing in the Delhi High Court as well as in the Supreme Court. So political career is there for everybody. Finally, every student who meets me somewhere asks me whether you require a postgraduate or a master's or a PhD in law. If you are interested in getting into litigation, my personal view is no, because you will be losing 1 or 2 years of practice, which could have been utilized for gaining experience as a lawyer. Because I have an experience like that, because after my graduation in law, I went for post-graduation Master of Business Law. Plan was to go for corporate laws firms, but I spent 2 years in college in Trivandrum and joined back for litigation. Then I understood I've lost 2 years practice. That is why I said, if you're into litigation, my answer is no. Now, regarding the courts, some of you may be knowing about it. The lowest court in our country, that is in Kerala, is the magistrate court. Then comes the district court. That is, in each district, there is a district court in which a district and sessions judge will be presiding. He has the power to hang a person. He is the only person who can directly pass a verdict for hanging him. Then comes the appellate court, that is the High Court. High Court mainly deals with the appellate appeals coming from the lower court, or else directly the constitutional issues regarding fundamental rights and some specific cases which come to the Supreme Court. The apex court is the Supreme Court of India, which is in New Delhi. The Supreme Court deals only with constitutional matters, that is regarding the violation of fundamental rights. Then comes the appellate jurisdiction from the High Court. If I pass an order and one party is aggrieved, you can approve the Supreme Court to get it reversed. These are the hierarchy of courts. I think I have given a brief idea about this. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, my next question is to Joseph, sir. Sir, in light of the various aspects pointed out by Basant, sir, what do you think is the wide possibility or the scope of law?
Okay, let me start by saying that a law degree is probably the only degree that makes you eligible to have a career in the three principal organs of the government: the legislature, the executive, and, as Justice Basant said, the judiciary. Because if a judiciary, it is mandatory for you to have a law degree. When I started out, a career in law meant litigation. But today, there is an assortment of opportunities that is available. The scope of law has changed completely. You could be a corporate law, working in a corporate law firm. You could be employed by a corporate house, banks, institutions, financial institutions. There is a new field of alternate dispute resolution in the form of arbitration and mediation. And as Basant said, even in education. Actually, you can just have a look at your panel today. You have all of us are law graduates, but you have Basant from the judiciary. I am a practicing lawyer. Nikhil is a corporate lawyer who's specializing in the niche field of technology. Arun has not been able to join, but he's pursuing a career in policy research and doing a PhD. This is a perfect example of the wide possibilities the spectrum of a degree in law can get you. But as to the litigation itself, now let me focus on the possibilities available in being a litigation lawyer. As a student of law, you are expected to take your exams in all aspects of law as per your curricula. But when you start your practice, you realize that practicing all these law that you learned is a near impossibility. And I would say that it would be foolish to try that, because you could be a jack of all trades, but master of none. So based upon your interest or what opportunities life throws at you, you specialize in areas of your choice. And this could be civil, criminal, taxation, labor, constitution, etc. In my example, I am also a qualified chartered accountant, and this enabled me to integrate my knowledge that I acquired into a specialized practice in taxation and also apart from commercial law. So apart from the broad spectrum that a law degree, the opportunities that can give you, even if it within the practice, litigation practice, there are different opportunities you specialize in.
Thank you, sir. Nikhil Cheda, one question that the students had asked earlier was that what is the employability in this field, and and what are the essential qualities required by a student?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of employability options for a law student. So I think just like sirs have already mentioned, right? You can litigate, you can broadly look at other aspects of dispute resolution. For instance, you get into mediation or arbitration and not necessarily be involved with the courts per se and still handle disputes that come up and help your clients. You can be a corporate lawyer, you can join a law firm and choose a niche specialty. For instance, there are lawyers who focus only on employment-related matters, labor and employment-related matters. There are lawyers who specialize only in projects and infrastructure side of the practice. That is, helping with respect to building airports or metro or high-speed rail projects and things like that. There are lawyers like me who practice specifically in technology matters, where I work with technology companies in designing their products and help them in structuring their products when they release the products in the market. You could be someone who helps with creation of contracts per se, the commercial contracts per se. You can also work in-house and support a particular company in within a company's legal department. So you could do a variety of options as an employment choice as a law graduate. Of course, like sirs have already mentioned, you can go join academics, you can join public policy and work with the government. You can join government departments and work within the government departments, etc., etc. There are several options. So it's, to my mind, sky's the limit when it comes to aspects of law, because law as a subject is essentially a social science. It's one of the few professional degrees which focus on social science. So it'll equip you to be to sort of serving the people, serving the government, serving the corporations, serving the commercial business community in the country. Even for that matter, you could also be a lawyer specializing in non-governmental organizations, NGO work, and you could help NGOs in helping with their funding, their legal issues. You could be a pro bono lawyer who works on social services matters. You could work on specified cases on getting access to justice to people who are underserved by the current system. There are a lot of options. And with respect to the quality, I think I would say the most important quality that's required for a law student or someone who wants to be a lawyer for that matter is the ability to actually analyze something critically. So, for instance, if you're good with logics, if you're good with logic and mathematics, if you're good with critical thinking, if you're good with current affairs, for that matter, I am a big political science and a history buff, and also at the same time a big tech geek as well. So that has tremendously helped me in my profession in doing what I do. So these are the qualities I would say it's very important for a lawyer. And of course, having a bit of confidence and having command over language, whichever language that is. I mean, for instance, knowing more languages can definitely help you. I am in the lookout for people who can read more languages and understand more languages, so that it helps in handling cases at lower levels that we have in lower courts that we have. So all sorts of skills, I would say. And like Joseph sir also just mentioned, it's very important that generally a lawyer should be a jack of all trades in that sense. It generally helps a lawyer's career in a big way in my personal experience.
Right. I think what you are trying to say is that any profession that you take, a requirement of a lawyer is there somewhere. any profession that you take. That's great. Okay.
Whether you just be a civil servant for that matter and be a very good lawyer, and that can also help you in your career as a civil servant.
Right. Just continuing with you, Nikhil Chetta, what made you choose this profession? And a common question that we receive from the students is that how does a normal working day look like for you? And before, just before Chetta, just a second before we move on, I would request if there are any further questions from the students or from the participants, I request you to kindly post it on the chat box so that we can ask those questions to the panelists. So back to you, Nikhil Chetta.
So, I mean, I would say that I became a lawyer by accident. My dad is a lawyer, but he never wanted me to become a lawyer because he thought that there was not much of a career for a lawyer. Despite the fact that he was actually he is still quite a successful litigation lawyer in Trivandrum. Having said that, so he wanted me to go for engineering. I, in fact, enrolled for engineering and then dropped out to become a lawyer. And I would say that I became a lawyer by accident. And my engineering, studies for some time, maybe 1.5 years, actually helped me in becoming a lawyer who specializes in technology matters. But that's just my case. I mean, it was not really a choice, but it sort of automatically happened to me that I didn't have to study much when it comes to law because of the fact that I was, good with current affairs. I was good with aspects relating to, language and public speaking, which obviously is a skill that Loyola has helped me quite a lot with. So I think that's how I essentially became a lawyer. It was actually by accident. The second part, can you just remind me on the question, Govind, again? The second part of the question.
How does a normal working day look like for you?
So normal working day, it really depends. I mean, early in my career, it used to start at around 9 o'clock in the morning and used to go all the way around 11, 12 on a daily basis. That was my early hours. Nowadays, it's really depends because I have around 15 people working for me, so it's much easier. But having said that, on an average day, I would say 8 to 12 hours is like almost like a minimum at any given point of time. Because that's a sort of workload that I take, and that sort of expectations the clients have with respect to deliverables, etc. So that's a typical day in my life.
Right. Joseph sir, what about you? What made you choose law?
Okay, I must confess that I had a distinct advantage in this aspect because I come from a family of lawyers and there was already an established law firm, which is always something that I could go into. So this kind of grew on me, and I don't think I even looked at another option. But there's an important aspect that probably changed my life is, when in 1975 batch at Loyola was the first batch that was offered commerce as an alternate stream. And in my case, it was simply jumping at that opportunity, not because I knew what exactly was commerce or accountancy. And it was simply that I didn't want to do science at all. Now, this prompted me to actually graduate in commerce and ultimately also pass my chartered accountancy. And that was, I was able to integrate the knowledge that I earned from both into a profession, into a career, which is basically rounded on a specialization in taxation law. And as for my typical day as a litigation lawyer, actually my day starts the previous evening because the cases that are listed for the next day in the High Court are published only in the evening. So that is when you actually continue your preparation for the case, and so that you are able to present your case for the next day. The day itself pans out to be a typical day in court. Most of the time you are there till at least 4 o'clock if your case is on. And if you're waiting for your case, you end up actually observing other lawyers, deliver their cases, and also observing the judges who you have to address in a short time. Then you come back in the evening, more meetings with clients and more meetings with other lawyers. So invariably, Monday to Friday, yeah, it's a long day.
Basant sir, what about you?
As Nikhil said, I also joined the profession of law accidentally because I wanted to become an engineer after my schooling in Loyola. but I couldn't get through the entrance examination at that time. So my mother was a judicial officer. She advised me, you have two options. You can either try once more, or else you can opt for some other degree course, or if as the last chance, law. That was her idea. But I chose law because I knew that a 5-year course, which is integrated one, after completion of that, I can be an independent lawyer if I work hard. Then I understood it is a better option for me. That is how I joined the law course. And after completing the 5-year course, I joined. Then I knew I can't start an independent practice at the age of 23 because you need to have experience. And I joined with a senior lawyer in Trivandrum, practiced there for 3 years. Then shifted to Cochin and joined the High Court, practiced in High Court from 98 onwards till 2021, where I was elevated to this post. Regarding the second question, that is regarding how a day looked like, I fully agree with Senior Counsel Joseph Markos, because our day starts the previous day. Because in the High Court, the cases which are posted on the next day are listed only by 6:30. So by 6:30, everybody is before this computer watching what are the cases that are listed tomorrow. As far as I am concerned, bundles are brought to my home by 6:30, which are to be argued by the learned counsels next day. So basically from during court hours, I reach office by 9:20. Then by 10:15, the court starts by ringing of a bell, just like the school. Then everybody enters the court room. They start the calling cases, and they argue. That goes till 1 o'clock. Then there's a short lunch break, 45 minutes. It reminds me of Loyola's break. At that time, after having lunch, we run to the ground to play at least for 10 minutes. Same thing happens here also, 45 minutes. We rush back to our chamber, have our lunch, and go back to the court again at 1:45, which may extend up to 4:30. By 4:30, the last bell rings. We are exhausted. Get down back to the chambers, have a cup of coffee. Then my work starts there because Joseph Markos and all the lawyers argue and they go. We, the judges, have to write the judgments. We sit there, go through it once more. Then we pass the judgments. Our private secretary corrects, prints it. We go through it once more, sign it, and then deliver the judgment. But regarding Saturday and Sunday also, we are also, as a lawyer, they may be having free time, but as a judge, Saturday and Sunday is also fully equipped because some big cases which we reserve the judgments, we take it back to your house, and during Saturdays and Sunday, we go through the entire papers and pass verdict. That is a normal day for a judge, as far as I'm concerned.
So I think just to add on, I think the important point to remember is that there's a saying that law is a jealous mistress. So it takes a lot of time. If you want to be a successful lawyer or a judge or any practitioner in law itself.
Yes, you're very right, Nikhil.
Thank you for giving us an insight into your lives, panelists. I had a question for you, Govind Cheta. Can you briefly explain the current admission processes to various NLUs and other colleges?
Yes, yes, Surya. I think that is a very important question. So, as most of you are aware, presently there are different kind of law colleges and law universities in India. Starting from national law universities, who we can get admission into national law universities through the common law admission test, CLAT, which happens once a year. But except for this year, it's going to happen twice because of COVID. So it is for admissions into the 5-year LLB program. And the CLAT as such has 5 subjects that a student should focus, which are English, current affairs, legal reasoning, logical reasoning, and quantitative techniques. And it's a 2-hour paper with 150 questions. And there are different other kinds of exams as well for other law universities. And one especially is National Law University, Delhi, which has a separate exam with similar subjects. So most of these law entrances have very similar question patterns and subjects. Like I said, English and quantitative analysis, etc. Now, if we look at private law colleges in India, so I was talking about national law universities till now. And with respect to private law colleges, there is an exam called LSAT, which is Law School Admission Test, which the admission processes is twofold for most of the good private colleges. So one is that they admit students directly from as per their LSAT score, and they also have a parallel admission process for those colleges as well. So you must have heard of colleges like Jindal Global Law School in New Delhi, Symbiosis in Pune, and Noida, and a few other places as well. Then you have Amity in Noida. Then there are a lot of such private colleges also, which offer you the 5-year LLB courses. And since we're going right after 12th standard, it is an integrated course, mostly integrating LLB with a bachelor's degree in arts or in sciences, BSc or BA or BCom. So as per your acumen of a bachelor subject, you can choose whether if you want to do arts or whether if you want to do science, etc. Now, moving on to the Kerala law colleges in Kerala, there is an exam called the Kerala Law Entrance Examination, which offers you admission into 4 government law colleges in Kerala, which are in Thiruvananthapuram, Ernakulam, Thrissur, and Kozhikode, and also to certain private law colleges in Kerala itself. Like you must have heard of Law Academy in Trivandrum, which is quite famous, and most of the old generation lawyers, in fact, studied in Law Academy in Thiruvananthapuram. And there are a lot of private law colleges in India, in Kerala also, that are doing very well to educate students and bring out such qualified lawyers. So I think and one quick advice that I would want to give you regarding the exams is that most of these exams are 2 hours or 1.5 hours, and the questions are about 150 questions. So you, in effect, get less than a minute per question. So one advice I would want to give you to crack such exams is to practice and practice and practice with different questions, with old question papers. Try to solve as many questions as possible so that you get the speed and you get the hang of it. Because you get about 40-45 seconds per question in these tests, and you need to be fast and you need to be thinking on your feet quickly. So that is the test that they are doing on you, and you need to be prepared by solving as much questions as possible during your preparation days. I think that should answer your questions.
Yeah,
I would like to add one point. I would like to add one point to Govind, because the admission process have already started. So those who are interested, they have to do it right now. It started in the 1st of January and it will end in March 1st.
Yeah. Also, I also wanted to add this one aspect. Look, all of us, of course, the focus is on your school students wanting to start a law career into a 5-year course. But there is the old option of doing your degree in a Bachelor of Arts and Science in a separate college, and thereafter attending a law college for a 3-year course is also available. Though the options are much limited from what it was when we practiced, that is the only option. It is still there. So it's not as if that, okay, if you're not decided on joining a law school just now and you would rather go to a wonderful college to do a Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science degree, you have an option to do a 3-year law course and still be a law degree.
You can subsequently come into the profession also if you feel like giving back to society after studying. Yes, sir.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we had received a few specific questions from our students during the past 1 week, and Joseph sir, I thought this is a very interesting question. Maybe I think you can shed some light into it. On what factors does the salary of a lawyer depend on? Is it winning a case, or what are the factors?
Well, that's a question, which I know everybody is interested in. But you must remember that in practice, the remuneration that you get is increases slowly. I mean, you can't expect the whole bag of money to land up in the first instance. So it's only with gaining experience in practice that you get a name for yourself, and then you are able to command a better. Now, winning a case should never be the criteria for you to think of, your professional fees. Rather, what is the guarantee that you're going to win all your cases? After all, judges have to agree with what you argue to actually win the case. So you can't, rely on that aspect. So a better thing to do is to put a value for your time and effort, which value increases with your experience and your knowledge. And probably as a benchmark, you can find that corporate lawyers sometimes, charge a rate per hour, and the ultimate charge will be based upon the number of hours they have spent for doing your work. A civil litigation lawyer will look at the subject value of the litigation, and you are permitted to charge a percentage of that as a fees as well. As a senior advocate, because we've come up so much, we are able to command a fee which is like a rate per appearance. So various factors determine how your remuneration. And I wouldn't suggest that you should think about winning the case as a criteria. Probably a bonus for winning the case. That's about it.
Joseph, we can also explain what is the difference between a normal lawyer and a senior lawyer. They may be interested in that.
Yeah, so you start your practice as a lawyer, then you come to the High Court and you practice there for a minimum period of 10 years. And then this is an honor which is conferred on you by the judges of the court for your knowledge, for your demeanor, and how you present your case, how you are, they confer you with this designation. And as a designated senior lawyer, there are certain advantages. Of course, remuneration is one of them. Another aspect is a pre-audience. Normally, when a designated senior lawyer is in court, in any court, ordinarily the judge would ask, which is your matter? I would take up that as the first. So these are some of the advantages, but otherwise it's basically a recognition for your having served and done a good job to.
Okay. Next, we have a question for Nikhil Chaitan. Nikhil Chaitan, what is a corporate law firm and what kind of work is done by a firm?
See, I mean, I personally believe that the term corporate law firm is actually nowadays a misnomer. But what goes as a corporate law firm essentially is our law firms which are structured like a corporate in the sense, for instance, I'll talk to you about my law firm. So my law firm, when I joined the law firm, it was, a 4-partner, 30 lawyers law firm, very small law firm, what we call a startup law firm. Now we are around 700 lawyers. We have 4 offices. We have around 70 partners in India. So the way it is structured is what makes a law firm a corporate law firm or not, in the sense that we have an HR department to look after HR. We have a CFO, a chief financial officer to look after into the financial aspects. We have a IT head or a chief information officer to look after information security aspects of the firm. It's a combination of all these, and it is run professionally in the way in which another corporate organization will be run, with performance-based evaluation systems, fixed retainer monthly payments to lawyers who work for us. And like Joseph sir said, there will be an hourly rate typically, which is the metrics for which we charge our services on the basis of. And a large part of our partners who practice are also lawyers who practice corporate law, which is helping companies with respect to mergers and acquisitions, listing in a stock market, those sort of services. And within this, there are also what we call ourselves as full service law firms. For instance, we deal with aspects relating to dispute resolutions. There are international arbitration specialists within the firm. There are arbitration specialists within the firm. There are technology lawyers like me who work on data and technology and artificial intelligence and those sort of things. There are lawyers who specialize on projects in finance. There are lawyers who specialize only on banking companies and provide services to banking companies. So I think a corporate law firm in that sense is a big organization, which caters all kinds of services that a client would require in the field of law. And due to the size and scale of operations per se, largely the clients of the corporate law firms will be corporates and government for that matter, who will be undertaking new projects and bigger projects or bigger disputes or international disputes and things like that. That's the way I would call a corporate law firm. The bigger law firms in India, just for everyone's information, are the Amarchand Mangaldas. There are two firms, Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas. Then would be AZB Partners, Trilegal, which is my firm, and Khaitan and Company are the other firm. Some of the other bigger names are like Jaisagar Associates is a very big name. Similarly, we also have Nisit Desai Associates and DSK Legal and few others who are quite big law firms in India. They are typically known in the circle as corporate law firms. Though, like I said, there's no longer anything about corporate because few years back they only used to do corporate. Now there are newer practice areas like what I handle, which is not necessarily corporate per se, but I do specialize in areas such as technology and other colleagues who do employment and various areas of specific areas of laws per se.
Just a follow-up question to what we had asked Joseph sir. There is a we have an idea that if you get into litigation, the junior lawyer doesn't make much money. What is the condition in the corporate field or if you're in-house? What is the situation there?
So typically, law firms and in-house offer you fixed salary, right? Which is, sometimes the pay packages can go up to, for starting in a big law firm in India can go up to around 15 lakhs per year. Sort of salaries is when you hire a person. It could range from maybe 3-4 lakhs a year to 15 lakhs to a year is the sort of salary that you can expect in-house and in corporate law firms when you join them. And they are offered a fixed component, and there will be a variable component which will also depend on their performance and the kind of hours that they put in to the matter, etc. And as you raise up the ranks, then your salary and your benefits will increase. And typically, when you become a partner, there are two kinds of partners. You could be a salaried partner who's just given salary every month, or you could be an equity partner. And Trilegal is a firm which only has equity partnership, where all partners have an equity in the whole in the law firm itself and gets a claim on the profits that the law firm makes on a yearly basis.
Right. Basant sir, we have a specific question from the students, which is, I think, quite interesting. What is it like to be a judge of the High Court, and what is your approach or philosophy in deciding a case?
See, the lawyer as well as the judge is just like two sides of the same coin. Lawyer argues his case before the judge, that is his particular case, but he prepares a brief for his client. But as far as the judge is concerned, we have to hear both sides, both arguments of the petitioner as well as the respondent or defendant, whoever it is. Then we interpret the law. In whose favor it falls, they win. So basically, it is an interpretation of law on the facts of the case that the decision is made. So it depends. You can't say each case, the facts are different. Question of law is different. So the philosophy in deciding a case is not the arguments of any lawyer as such, but depends on various other factors.
Joseph sir, we have a question for you. Do you feel like there are any disadvantages that a person with a career in law faces?
Well, basically, it would be something that's common to everything, but I can probably dwell upon two aspects, which we have already considered. One is, and I'm talking about in a perspective of a litigation lawyer. Firstly, for a litigation lawyer, the reward in terms of remuneration is a slow process. You don't immediately get it. It takes time. But I can tell you that, as Nikhil said, whereas for a corporate lawyer in a firm, it could be a steady income. But if you are willing to put in your hours and develop, the the remuneration that you're going to ultimately get is well worth that wait. Secondly, as again Nikhil said, the profession is a jealous mistress. You need to spend a lot of time to attend to your case. So it is not just preparing for the case. There is an aspect of law apart from what is there in the books. Every day you read in the paper, Supreme Court said this on privacy. The Supreme Court get that on this. The Supreme Court is now considering the hijab case. So ultimately, when the Supreme Court and the High Court decides a case, they're laying down a law which is to apply to everybody here. And what you see in the paper is those important things that affects generally interest to everybody. But in terms of taxation, in terms of labor, constitutional, everyday cases are being decided. And it's up to you to keep yourself updated, because if you're not updated on this, if you don't learn and read these journals, then you are way down. You will never be able to present your case properly. So it's a continuous learning process, and that takes a lot of time. So in the initial years, free time may be a premium. That's probably, it's there for every other profession, but yes, this is specific to a litigation lawyer.
Basant sir, with respect to a litigation lawyer, you have transitioned from a litigating lawyer in the lower courts in Trivandrum and the High Court, and now you're sitting as a judge and giving back to society. So how is the transition? What is the difference?
The practicing as a trial court, that is in Trivandrum, that is the lowest court in our state. So each case has to be filed in the lowest forum. That is the law. You can't directly go to an appellate court and file a case. But regarding constitutional matters, you can approach the High Court. So when I started the practice in Trivandrum, I was into the trial work. That is, you have seen the examination of witnesses in movies. That was the work I used to do. So unless you study that, the procedural aspects of procedures that is done in the court, in the lowest court, you won't be aware of it. So when you go to an appellate court and argue a case, you definitely have to know the procedure which was followed in the lower court and the mistakes, if any, that was committed by the judge or whoever it is. That is where we attack as a lawyer. But when I shifted to Cochin, Ernakulam High Court, the scene was entirely different. 90% of the cases are writ petition, that is called constitutional matters coming before the court is the writ petitions, writ petitions. So you must have heard of habeas corpus writs. I think the students may be knowing about habeas corpus because that is the general thing everybody knows now. Habeas corpus, news items in habeas corpus. So it was a different experience as a trial court lawyer, as a transition from a trial court lawyer to a lawyer in the High Court. When as a judge, I would say I am still a baby one. I've just started the career very recently. Long way to go. Study so many things. That is all.
Thank you, Basant sir. Nikhil Chadha, we have a question regarding your specific field. Like, how are the scope in how is law involved has crept into artificial intelligence, telecom, banking, etc. What is your take on that? The technological advancements that has changed the legal profession.
Let me talk about artificial intelligence first. So, for instance, that's where I practice. So, typically, when big tech, so-called the big tech companies like Facebook or Google or Amazon, for that matter, or Apple, implements a new product which uses artificial intelligence, you're actually granting the discretion in terms of deciding a person's eligibility for a particular aspect. It could be a lending product where you are eligible for a loan or something like that, some sort of decision making is actually granted to a computer or a machine. So in that respect, a human won't be sitting there and taking a decision. It's actually the software which is taking a decision. So when a software takes a decision, then there are a few aspects to be considered. There are aspects such as we all have blind spots or biases, right? So people who code the software or create these machines will have their own biases, which will be passed on to the machines as well. then we need to create frameworks and rules around how this does not affect another person's fundamental right. For instance, you are entering a premise, and for instance, one of the projects I worked with was the Arogya Setu app, right? The fact that a technology was deciding whether you have the right to enter an aeroplane, right? And you have a fundamental right to travel in this country because you are free to move around in this country. But your right to enter that aeroplane will be determined on whether it gives you a blue tick or a green tick or an orange tick, right? So then what are the factors, what is the data that is being considered by the software to actually land at that decision? How to make that decision error-free, right? That's the sort of analysis that we do. And while doing that, what sort of data of a person is being collected, right? If so, how is the data protected? Will a harm be caused to that person if it's not processed in the right manner and ensuring that the liabilities, etc., are adequately captured? And the litigations and the disputes surrounding that is one area of artificial intelligence and the interface with law person. So it involves creation of frameworks, rules and regulations around that, advising various stakeholders involved in the process. For instance, we work with the government on the Arogya Setu's design itself to ensure that the rights of the people are protected to the best possible manner in a pandemic situation. Similarly, in banking, for that matter, there could be questions around, there will be lending transactions. For instance, the Kerala government is developing a metro rail project, which means that they're borrowing huge amounts of money from World Bank or some other organization, right? There are legal work and paperwork surrounding that, and how is the borrowing of money done? What is the constitutional right of the government to take a borrowing from a state? For instance, one of the projects that the firm worked on was on masala bond issuance by Kerala government, right? Where the question was, with respect to the legality of masala bond itself and whether that was something which is allowed or not. So the other one, telecom projects for that matter. So I was involved in rolling out telecom projects, several projects in India, including when Telenor launched in India. I don't know how many of you students will remember that there was a service provider called Telenor. I've done matters for Vodafone. Similarly, I have been instrumental in launching the telecom services in Myanmar when Myanmar was opened up for the first time in launching the projects, which involved negotiating contracts, designing the networks, ensuring that principles like net neutrality and other things are preserved when providing services to the users, etc. Telecom is an extremely complicated, heavily regulated market. So anything new. For instance, some of the projects that I'm working right now is on SATCOM, which is providing communication services or internet services using satellite, which is a new project that I'm working on, which involves telecom regulations a lot. So there's a lot of scope for these sort of projects. There are a lot of scope of a lot of demand for lawyers involved in this because each and every aspects of these communication services, etc., are heavily regulated by the government. And there are areas in which a company or a provider needs to walk through a tight rope walk per se that they need to walk through to ensure that they remain compliant while undertaking these projects. And also which is done in a commercially and a legally secure manner while providing the services to the end users.
Nikhil, just as a last question, what is the employability aspects or the scope if abroad, outside India? And also regarding education, if you can shed some light.
Sure. So basically, two aspects on education. So you can do your undergraduate degree in law outside India itself at Ivy League schools, for instance, Harvard and Yale and other places. You need to write a separate test for that. I don't really know the much details because I never even tried. That was completely beyond my horizons at that point of time. So that's an option a lot of people are considering right now. Or you can finish your law in India and then go for an LLM abroad in one of these prestigious universities. Typically, what I personally recommend is practice for some time, gain the practical exposure, and then decide you want to do an LLM or not, which makes more sense. Typically, foreign law LLMs are 1-year LLMs, whereas in India, we see 2-year LLMs. So 1-year LLMs, in the sense, you save a lot of time, but of course, the cost of having this education outside, especially in a place like US, is fairly expensive. And that's something that one needs to keep in mind when doing that. And after that, there is scope of employability in other jurisdictions. There are lawyers who practice in London and America and various other places. You need to sometimes pass a separate bar exam there. For instance, you need to practice in New York. You need to pass a New York bar. Similarly, practice in California. You need to pass a California bar. Similarly, in London and common law countries, there is a test known as QLCC, which you need to pass to practice the law there. And then you can get employed by a foreign law firm there, or you can get employed by a foreign corporate and practice there. It used to be a very, I mean, it still is a lucrative option, but it used to be much more lucrative than earlier. Because right now, if you ask me, India, probably the best place for a lawyer to be right now is in India itself, because there is so much happening in this economy, so much happening in this market, and so many new principles are being developed in every aspect of law. And we are such a developing country that it's much more exciting here. Those jurisdictions are much more settled. You will probably get good amount of money, good work-life balance in some of the other jurisdictions than India. But if you want to be want to have much more exciting career, probably India is a better place to be. But that's also an option that one definitely has.
Right. Thank you so much. Now, next we can move on to questions that we received regarding school. The answer of which even I am very keen to listen to. I hope all the panelists will have something interesting to say. Starting with you, Joseph, sir. How has Loyola School and the education that you received impacted your life and career in law?
Well, it's now more than 46 years since I left school, and that I think is a very long time. And I was in the boarding. I think that's one experience that none of you have had, because I think the boarding in school stopped a couple of years after I left. So let me say that, at that time there were a lot more prees, and all of them were living in the campus. And, each of them were assigned duties with respect to our boarding life. And there were some of them who, didn't want to see us hanging around on a Sunday, and therefore started, simple programs. One of which was, I think it was then started by a late Father C.P. Varkey, a former principal. He just picked up randomly a few of us on a Sunday and said, come, from this Sunday onwards, we're going to have a workshop on public speaking. And, we sit around, speak on some subject, others are allowed to criticize. And at that point of time, I thought I didn't find it amusing itself, having to do all this in front of people. There's also a former principal, Father Morris Stanford. He's no more. Both of them are no more, actually. He taught us, he was a principal, and he taught us Shakespeare. And it was in his interest all the time to, think of some program where we can put up a one-act play on a Shakespeare thing. So I still remember once he said, part of our hostel boarding day, this thing, okay, we're going to do an act on Macbeth. And he pointed at me and said, you will be Lady Macbeth. And I said, oh my God, imagine that, But so we had to rehearse for that. And luckily for me, it was never staged. And so these are small experiences which I think, cleared some butterflies in my stomach. But overall, I think it is the all-round education, the particular attention that, they all gave to outdoor sports, which all of us, really enjoyed, that has clearly defined my character.
Sir, any specific advice that you would want to give to the students?
Okay, let me put it this way, if you do join a law school, whether it's 5 years or a 3 year, in 5 years, your scheme of things in the school are well regimented. They have compulsory things for you to do. But always remember that, in between semesters, when you're in a typical old day college, you come back, you want to chill. That is your idea of a vacation. But here, there is an opportunity for you to actually intern with various law firms. For many law colleges, 5-year colleges, it's compulsory. But so there are certain colleges where they might say compulsory, but it can be managed. But it's so important because you get a lot of experience just by working. If Nikhil is to give you an internship, just by seeing him do these things, you will learn a lot. You come to my office, probably you may be just helping me to carry my bookstick, run to the court with it, but you're seeing these things, which when you pass out, you realize that, look, these are very useful tips for you. So don't forget to do your internship and add to it, do an internship in a civil, with a criminal lawyer, with a taxation lawyer, or with a law firm And so that you get a wide range, and then at the end of the 5 years, you can decide which is what attracts you.
Right. Nikhil Chetta, over to you. What do you remember from school, and how do you think school has impacted your career?
So I think in tremendous many ways. I mean, school is school helped me come on stage, do mimicry, act in dramas, mono act, speaking. So I mean, everything, school has tremendously helped me in all those aspects. And I think one of the most important aspects is, look, I believe as a lawyer, a successful lawyer is also should be a successful entrepreneur as well, right? Your entrepreneurship project is not necessarily a company to build a company, but you are your own brand, and you're building your own career as a lawyer. That's your entrepreneurship project. And in that sense, I think we had the Lapis. And look, I think that was the first entrepreneurship experience that I've had in my life. We literally started that fest along with the help of, our principal then and all the senior batches and teachers. And that's helped me tremendously. And looking back, I should say that, look, that was one of the brilliant things that Loyola has done in my career. Taught me how to, be an entrepreneur. And right now I organize international conferences, and, I'm part of bigger projects involving entrepreneurship elements, including my practice, and Loyola has helped me tremendously there. And of course, the public speaking and other things apart, the focus on extracurricular activities, that helped me a lot as a lawyer. And of course, the reading habits. I mean, fine tuning of the reading habits and the fantastic library that we had. Library was like my second home in Loyola, and it always remained in my law school days as well, which has helped me a lot as a lawyer. And I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, the time I had, looking back, it was one of the best times in my entire life.
Any advice to the students?
So I would agree with Joseph sir here. I mean, do maximum number of internships and varied sorts of internships before you finally decide where you want to land up in a career. And you're young, and you do not really know about all the various sort of practices and opportunities available to you. And the other, of course, the important aspect is, apart from just studying, focus on just reading more about law, philosophy, political science, current affairs, technology, anything that's interests you. That's going to tremendously help you in your practice and your career. And of course, the other important aspects is do more moods, do more, moot courts, client counselings, negotiation competitions. Take part in that, because that's also a ticket for you to know how rest of the law schools operate. Because we used to travel around the country to go to other law schools, meet the students from there. I was the first batch of NOALs. We started NOALs, and every system that you see in NOALs have been, inspired by some other system that we learned from some other, law schools in the country, like in Calcutta or Bangalore. We used to travel for moot courts and these competitions just to meet them and learn what they do in their law schools, and then implement it here, and we sort of run. I mean, that was actually the second entrepreneurship project in my life. So in that sense, I think travel more, meet more people, see the country, learn in these competitions, those sort of value additions that you get in your career. It's going to be brilliant, and that's going to definitely shape you up. And to my mind, just try and do as many things as possible in law school. Don't just focus on studies. Do as many things as possible. It will definitely give you good results. Is my advice.
Right. I think the benefit of the participants have today is that we have panelists from 3 different generations from school. And now I think we can move on to Basant sir, who's of the 88 batch. He can give a perspective of how school was and his experience in school, and his advice to the students.
Public speaking, that was the first thing which comes to my mind. While I was in the school from 82 to 88, we were given an option. I mean, we have to make a speech and deliver it before the whole school in the assembly. So preparing a speech and delivering before the whole school in front of the father principal, everybody, staff, that has helped me a lot in public speaking, as well as when I joined the career as a lawyer. That public speaking in front of a huge crowd, that has helped me a lot. That shyness that was not there in my thing. Regarding there are so many co-curricular activities which were in those days. That is, I was the captain of the cricket team. One interesting which comes to my mind is, while I was in the 8th standard, Father Vagis Anikuri was the principal. After the lunch break, during the second period, I think so, the peon from the principal's office came with a chit and handed over to the class teacher. And she called out my name and told me, "You are wanted by the principal." Shiver started. Ice cold. I don't know why this principal is calling me at this time. I walked out of the classroom, stood before the door of the principal's office. Then he called me in. Ice cold. He stood up. He came near me. He actually took a handshake with me. My hand was very cold. And he said, "See, Basant, I just called you to congratulate. You are included in the cricket team." At that moment, I don't know what to say, because it was a wonderful experience, and I was only in 8th standard, and I was included in the school cricket team because I used to bowl, and I used to bowl as an opening bowler. For 3 years, I was in the school team. So thanks to Father Vagis Anikuri because for giving me that opportunity, which I took forward after my school days also.
Thank you, sir. Any particular advice that you think a student of law or school students wanting to do law should keep in mind?
There is no shortcut to be a successful lawyer. Only hard work and a definite aim will pave the way for it. You are a student learning your whole career. There is no end for it, because you have to read a lot of books, updated, because law changes every day. Being a lawyer also, as well as a judge, everybody has to be updated. Otherwise, you're out of the place. So reading habit, you do it now itself. Make use of the library maximum. Even if you get out of the school, there are public libraries. You go to the place during a free time, read current affairs, or if you are pursuing a law career, there are so many journals written by famous judges and lawyers, even in foreign as well as in India. Go through it. It will help you a lot.
Right. So I think we can slowly wind up our session. Due to the paucity of time, I don't think we can have any more questions. So for the benefit of the participants, the recorded version of this session is available on the Loyola website. And if at all any more questions or any support or advice that you require, you can feel free to reach out to the school, and they will definitely direct you towards us. So on that note, there has been such meaningful insights into the profession and the wide possibilities it holds for all of you. And I really hope that this session has been quite fruitful in giving you an idea as to the field of law and its scope. And unfortunately, we have come to the end of the session. And before we part, I would like to wholeheartedly thank all our panelists and the co-moderator who happily agreed to be part of this webinar. I thank all of you in a very personal level also for putting up with all the discussions we've had in the past few days. And I thank all the participants also for their valuable questions and their presence. This session of Explore would be the last session for this academic year. And let me take this opportunity to first congratulate the whole team of Explore and for their immense success in this program. And I'm sure that each and every student who participated in these sessions took home something very valuable from all of the panelists that have been on the various webinars. And I think I'm very sure that it has helped all of the students who participated. And I expressly want to mention the effort of Mr. Suresh K. Arvind of the 1977 batch, who has been at the helm of Explore on behalf of LOBA. And all of the credit to Explore success goes to Suresh Charan. And I also want to mention the sincere help and effort done by the back-end teams as well, led by Binoy Stephen and Filippo Stetton. A big thank you to both of you and the other people working behind Explore. Lastly, I want to extend our sincere gratitude to Father Principal, Father P.T. Joseph, Mr. Ranjit Ravindran, President of LOBA, and other teaching and non-teaching staff of the school, especially James Thomas Sir and Shruti Ma'am, and other office bearers, well-wishers of LOBA and the PTA for their support. So I hope all of you have found this career guidance programs to be quite helpful to you. And on that note, I once again thank you for your participation. Cheer Loyola Sons and cheer till game is won. Good night and Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.